Hello and welcome to Conversations with Co-Principals. This is a new web series that we're putting together so that our community can learn more about our Yawa education and what we're doing here at Yantai throughout the year. So I'm Doug Woodruff and I'm your Western Co-Principal here at Yantai.
I'm Leo Li. I'm the Chinese co-principal. So Doug, first, I want to say welcome to Yantai team again. So the team here is really excited and happy to have you as our new Western co-principal. Before we actually start our conversation today, I have a question for you. I know not a lot of foreigners living in China, they have a Chinese name. And I know that you happen to have an interesting Chinese name. It is Wu Haolong, which means white dragon. So I'm curious to know the story behind your Chinese name.
So that's a great question. When I first moved to China 11 years ago, I allowed my grade 6 students to help name me. So they came up with that I was going to be the green dragon. And through that, we found that Woodruff was difficult for some young students to be able to say.
I see.
So we shortened it down to Wu for my family name.
Good.
As I moved into Yawa back in 2017, we were discussing appropriate names for Western and Chinese students as they're moving into university, and it was pointed out that the spelling and characters of Green Dragon weren't appropriate for an adult at that point. So working with our team, we found a cultural way to create a new name for me that was going to be appropriate as an administrator, but also kind of keep that fun idea of being able to be named after a dragon.
Okay, thank you for sharing the story behind this, because today we're going to talk about international education. And when we talk about international education, we always also talk about intercultural communication, East meets West. So I'm so happy that, you are also interested in Chinese culture. And you have this, interesting Chinese name is a proof that, your interest to know more about Chinese culture, so it gives you this intercultural perspective. Do you agree?
I do, and if we really think about it, that's why I ended up working with Yawa specifically, because as our families know, we do have our Yaocheng branch, which teaches purely in the international. But when we look at our Yawa branch and we're taking our Chinese national curriculum and blending it with those international ideals, to me that is the better form of education, because it's exposing our students to so many more ideas and so many more traits that we can develop in order to be not only a strong Chinese national citizen, but a global citizen.
Yeah, exactly. I remember of the famous novelist, Russian novelist, Leo Tolstoy once said, when you haven't learned a foreign language, you'll never get to know your own language truly and deeply. So that's our mission together. We would like to develop students who have a bilingual, even trilingual skills and competency, and with a multicultural perspective. So talking about this, multicultural, perspective, I know that, Doug, before you joined YCYW, you have worked in different countries and in different leadership capacities. Can I ask you what has prompted you to choose YCYW schools when you decided to join us? What specific parts of YCYW education attracted you?
Well, I mean, back then when I was teaching in the US, I was teaching IB, and I was teaching IB music. And what really attracted me was that global thinking. And so then when having the opportunity to move to China and eventually work for Yawa, it was that blending of cultures and that cultural learning about the new cultures that led me to wanting to be in specifically that bilingual school setting versus a purely international setting, and being able to experience a coming together of so many different cultures and ideas in a foreign country. And how does those perceptions work together with students? How do we help them evolve their creativity and their own thinking and independence with all of those values that we're bringing together? So, and same with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Leo, you've been
Yeah.
working in international schools over your career.
Yeah.
What led you to international schools versus, say, working in the Chinese national system?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm more than happy to answer. As you might have noticed already that, like you, I do have my own native language Chinese name, Li Chenghai, which means I become an ocean. And you happen to be a dragon, so I provide a good habitat for you. Okay, but I also have an English name, Leo Lee. And Leo in English, it has the connotation of the animal lion. And lion is, a very symbolic animal in Buddhism. And at that time, I was researching and learning about, Buddhism. And the lion is the, symbol of the Buddhist, practice in some way. Anyway, so my point is that, I think, personally, from when I was a child, I am interested in these, multicultural perspective. I think, I would never confine my word to China only or to my hometown only. I would like to get to know the bigger world. And if you want to know the bigger world, then I think my current profession is really ideal for me because I meet people, colleagues, and students and parents from all different nationalities. For me, this is a fantastic job. That together we are influencing the next generation of children and influencing them in a positive way, so that they can become really useful people for the society and for the world at large. So I really enjoy this job that we are doing here.
So, in your experience, because I see this a lot in bilingual schools and international schools across China, we always hear the term where East meets West. Almost every bilingual school now is East meets West.
Yeah.
Where do you think Yahua is different in that regard, and what sets us apart from that?
It's a good question. People talk about East meets West, but in terms of how we balance, the different cultures, and in that regard, different schools have different perspectives. I personally firmly, believe in and deeply appreciate YCYW philosophy, especially our founders motto, which is here in Chinese. It's 勤俭谦信, which means diligence, frugality, humility, and faithfulness. So I personally appreciate these cultural values, and so that's one of the reasons why I joined the YCYW. So we sometimes we talk about Chinese roots with a global perspective, and I think YCYW is exactly doing this. So while we are developing our students' multicultural competence and bilingual ability, etc., and all these soft skills that will help them ready for the 21st century, but we don't forget the Chinese roots, so that our students, they know Chinese culture, they have deep roots in their Chinese culture and understanding, but they have a global perspective. That's my understanding. And Doug, talking about these, multicultural competence, and so how would you because I know, for example, you're from America, and America is a country famous for its creativity, science and technology. So being a principal in a international school like ours, how have you been practicing, so that we can develop creativity in our students?
Well, I think that's an interesting question for our current generation. With the development of AI right now, we need to continue pushing. And I think Yahua and Yaocheng have taken the opportunity to push that when we look at future forward education. A lot of schools are still talking about 21st century thinking, And what we realize is we're already a quarter of a way through the century. So we need to be looking at 22nd century thinking. And I think that's where we're developing that creativity with our combination of support for arts and culture in our schools. So like you said, we're grounded in our Chinese roots with our 5-minute Chinese classics.
Correct.
We've got our strings program, which helps develop that musical side. And that's also logic processing, that's pattern recognition for maths. We've got a strong arts program with our students. And then when we build that into our new AI coursework and our technology coursework, it is about pushing the bounds of whatever we can think of, how do we now create it? And how do we create those thinkers that can say, well, I want to see this, and how do I input it? How do I output it? So I think that this particular school is standing on that 22nd century thinking now and really moving to that forefront based on how we've developed that curriculum of blending the Eastern philosophies, the Confucianist philosophies with the science and technology, the charity and the love as we move forward in our teaching.
Yeah. I really liked, you just mentioned, 22nd century, which means, our education is, far ahead of our current time, which is really good because, we are not preparing our students, for 2025 this year. We are preparing our students, for future ahead of us, So I know that, our YCYW Education Network, we have a special division called EdFuture Division. And I know that, you as one of our experienced, Western co-principal, you also have, actively participated in some EdFutures like projects implemented in YCYW schools, Would you like to take this opportunity to share something about EdFutures?
I would love to share about EdFutures. EdFutures is one of my favorite parts of the foundation. Even though I was a music teacher, I love our arts programs, but I do think EdFutures is taking that step forward. So we've got projects like underwater robotics for students. We've got a medical immersion program. We've got the particle physics for high school students. None of these programs could, what I imagine that when we were younger, we even had access to in high school, let alone we were waiting till probably your master's degree until you could be working in these programs. So I think the EdFutures program not only brings in those programs, but then we start connecting students with subjects that maybe there's only 1 or 2 students in your school have an interest in. Well, now we can run more subjects. So we've got a blooming digital media program, which is a heavy focus on graphic design, photography, film, and animation. Those are, again, topics that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we were still making collegiate level. And so we can bring those advanced learning skills down to our students. We're teaching things like computer science at that level. And then we're also extending it out. So over the summer, our EdFutures program took kids to Australia for exploration in archaeology, in technology development, and working with famous universities like Monash over there. We've also worked in China with our China One program in order to look at different science, the space program, and we've looked at archaeology and dinosaur digs. So it's really taking that learning outside of the exams. And I know everyone, especially in secondary, looks at exams so heavily. But it makes it practical and it puts that learning into practice.
Yeah.